Where light took years to travel and silence reigned supreme, something unusual happened. A small alien ship, battered and leaking energy like a wounded animal, crossed into human territory. It wasn't sleek or shiny like most ships humans had encountered before. Instead, it was rough, patched together with mismatched parts, looking more like a floating junkyard than a vessel meant for interstellar travel. Yet, despite its appearance, it carried a message that would change everything. The ship stumbled through the outer edges of Mars's orbit, barely holding itself together. Its engines sputtered and its hull glowed faintly from the heat of atmospheric friction as it approached the red planet. Inside, the crew, two beings wrapped in tattered robes, worked frantically to keep their craft alive. One of them tapped furiously on a console covered in strange symbols, while the other adjusted dials with trembling hands. The air around them buzzed with static, and the smell of burnt circuits filled the cramped cabin. They were desperate, running out of time, and knew it on Mars. Scientists monitoring the orbital perimeter noticed the intruder almost immediately. Dr. Carla Bennett, an astrophysicist stationed at the Mars Observation Outpost, was the first to spot it. She sat hunched over her workstation, staring at a series of blinking dots on her screen. At first, she thought it might be debris or some malfunctioning satellite drifting off course. But when the object changed direction and started transmitting a signal, her heart skipped a beat. "This isn't natural," Carla muttered under her breath, leaning closer to the monitor. "It's intelligent." She alerted the rest of the team, and soon the entire outpost was buzzing with activity. Technicians scrambled to decode the incoming transmission, which came in bursts of garbled sounds mixed with fragmented words. In broken English, phrases like "help us" and "swarm devours all," repeated over and over again, interspersed with pleas for mercy and warnings of doom. No one could make sense of it entirely, but the tone was unmistakable. Fear. Meanwhile, back on Earth, news of the mysterious signal reached the highest levels of government. The United Earth Defense Command convened an emergency meeting in Washington. D.C., pulling together military leaders, politicians, and scientists. The room was tense, filled with people who didn't fully trust each other but shared a common goal: to figure out what to do next. The president listened intently as generals debated whether this was a trap or a genuine cry for help. Advisors argued about the risks of getting involved versus the potential rewards of forming alliances with extraterrestrial civilizations. Captain Lisa Harper, a seasoned officer known for her sharp mind and even sharper tongue, watched the chaos unfold from the corner of the room. She had been summoned to the meeting because of her experience commanding deep space missions. Though she rarely spoke unless spoken to, her presence commanded respect. When the discussion turned to sending a response team, she finally stepped forward. "We can sit here arguing until the sun burns out," Lisa said, her voice calm but firm, "or we can act. If these aliens are telling the truth, and I'm not saying they are, we need to investigate. But if they're lying, we still need to know why." Her words cut through the noise, silencing the room. Everyone looked at her, waiting for her to continue. "I'll take my ship," she added, referring to the Ook's Liberty, a state-of-the-art battleship equipped with cutting-edge weapons and technology, and a small task force. "We'll assess the situation, gather intel, and decide our next move. Worst-case scenario, we lose one ship. Best case, we gain a new ally or eliminate a threat before it reaches us." The proposal sparked heated debate. Some argued that sending a single ship was reckless, while others insisted it was better than committing the entire fleet to an unknown danger. Eventually, the president made the call. Lisa Harper was given command of the mission, along with strict orders to avoid provoking conflict unless absolutely necessary. As preparations began, Lisa assembled her crew. Among them was Ensign Dan Mitchell, a young communications specialist with a knack for languages. Though he lacked field experience, his ability to decipher complex codes made him invaluable. There was also Lieutenant Jessica Morris, a pilot whose reflexes were unmatched, and Sergeant Ryan Cole, a grizzled Marine with a reputation for being fearless in battle. Each member brought something unique to the table, forming a team capable of handling whatever lay ahead. The journey to the alien system took several days, during which tensions ran high. The crew spent hours analyzing the fragmented messages, trying to piece together clues about the sender's identity and motives. Don pored over recordings of the transmission, listening intently for patterns or hidden meanings. Jessica ran simulations of possible scenarios, preparing for any eventuality. Ryan kept his squad sharp with drills and exercises, ensuring they were ready for combat at a moment's notice. And Lisa? She paced the bridge, lost in thought, weighing every decision carefully. When they finally arrived, the sight that greeted them was both awe-inspiring and horrifying. The alien system was unlike anything they had ever seen. Planets hung suspended in a sea of swirling colors, their surfaces scarred by massive craters and jagged ridges. Moons floated aimlessly, some cracked open like eggshells, others reduced to rubble. In the distance, a dying star cast an eerie glow over the wreckage, illuminating the devastation left behind by whatever force had ravaged the region. At the center of it all was the homeworld, once thriving planet now shrouded in darkness. Thick clouds of ash choked the atmosphere, blocking out the sun and plunging the surface into perpetual twilight. Rivers of molten rock snaked across the landscape, carving paths through cities that had long since crumbled into dust. It was a graveyard, a monument to destruction on a scale unimaginable to human eyes. What could have done this? Jessica whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the ship's engines. Something big, Ryan replied grimly. Something we don't want to mess with. But Lisa wasn't so sure. She studied the readings on her console, noting anomalies in the planet's magnetic field and strange energy signatures emanating from beneath the surface. Whatever had caused this catastrophe, it wasn't finished yet. Prepare the shuttle, she ordered, turning to face her crew. We're going down there. The landing party consisted of Lisa, Dan, Ryan, and 2 other Marines. They suited up quickly, checking their gear one last time before stepping onto the shuttle. As they descended toward the planet, the air grew heavier, charged with static electricity. Lightning flashed in the distance, illuminating skeletal remains of buildings and twisted metal structures. It felt like stepping into a nightmare. When they touched down, the ground shook violently beneath their feet. Ash swirled around them, stinging their eyes and clogging their filters. Visibility was poor, forcing them to rely on their helmet sensors to navigate. They moved cautiously, scanning for signs of life or death. It didn't take long to find evidence of the latter. Bodies littered the streets, frozen mid-motion as if caught in the middle of a sudden disaster. Some appeared humanoid, with elongated limbs and bulbous heads, while others looked completely alien, their forms unrecognizable. All bore the same marks: deep gouges, melted flesh, and hollow cavities where organs should have been. It was clear that whatever had attacked them had shown no mercy, despite the grim surroundings. The team pressed on, following a trail of faint distress signals leading deeper into the ruins. Eventually, they stumbled upon a makeshift bunker buried beneath layers of debris. Inside, they found survivors, dozens of them, huddled together in the dim light of flickering lamps. They looked up as the humans entered, their expressions a mix of hope and terror. One of the aliens stepped forward, clutching a translator device in trembling hands. You came, it said haltingly, its voice distorted by the machine. Thank you. Lisa exchanged a glance with Don, who nodded slightly. He understood enough of the language to confirm the translation was accurate. We're here to help, Lisa replied, choosing her words carefully. Tell us what happened. The alien hesitated, then launched into a story that chilled them to the bone. According to its account, the swarm, a relentless tide of biomechanical organisms, had invaded their world without warning. It consumed everything in its path, devouring resources and leaving nothing but desolation in its wake. The aliens had fought back with everything they had, but it wasn't enough. Now they begged for sanctuary, pleading with the humans to save what little remained of their civilization. As Lisa listened, she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The pieces didn't fit. The swarm's behavior didn't align with typical predator-prey dynamics. It wasn't just consuming, it was evolving, adapting, spreading faster than logic allowed. And the aliens themselves. There was something off about their story, something they weren't telling. Still, she kept her doubts to herself. For now, they needed answers. And if those answers meant risking everything including their lives, then so be it. The mission was far from over. The air inside was thick with the smell of sweat, fear, and something metallic that made Lisa's nose wrinkle. She stood at the center of the room, her helmet's visor reflecting the dim light as she scanned the survivors. They were a pitiful sight, thin, dirty, and clearly exhausted. Some clutched makeshift weapons, while others held on to each other for comfort. Their eyes darted between the humans, a mix of hope and suspicion in their gaze. The alien who had spoken earlier stepped forward again, clutching its translator device tightly. "You must help us," it said, its voice trembling. "Our world is lost. We beg you to take us away from here." Lisa didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned to Dan, who was already working on his own portable translator. He knelt beside the alien, asking questions slowly and carefully, trying to piece together more details about the swarm. The creature hesitated, but eventually began explaining how the invasion started, a sudden appearance in the sky, followed by chaos as the biomechanical creatures descended upon their cities. They consumed everything, resources, buildings, even people. Nothing could stop them. As Don listened, he noticed inconsistencies in the story. The timeline didn't add up, and certain phrases repeated unnaturally, almost as if the alien were reciting memorized lines rather than sharing genuine memories. He glanced at Lisa, who gave him a subtle nod, signaling that she had caught it too. Meanwhile, Ryan and the Marines kept watch near the entrance, scanning the shadows outside for any signs of movement. The silence beyond the bunker walls was oppressive, broken only by the occasional rumble of distant explosions or the crackle of lightning. None of them trusted this place, and they weren't about to let their guard down. "If we're going to help you," Lisa finally said, addressing the aliens, "we need to know exactly what we're dealing with. Where did the swarm come from? Why did it attack?" The lead alien exchanged nervous glances with its companions before answering. "It came from below, deep within the planet. Ancient machines awakened and they brought the swarm." Dun frowned. "Ancient machines?" It sounded like a fairy tale, not an explanation. He leaned closer, pressing for clarification. "What kind of machines? Who built them?" "We do not know," the alien replied, its voice dropping lower. "They are old, older than our people. We tried to use them, to harness their power, but they turned against us." This revelation raised more questions than answers. Lisa crossed her arms, her expression unreadable behind her visor. "So you're saying this is your fault?" she asked bluntly. "You woke something you didn't understand?" The alien flinched, stepping back as if struck. "No, we sought only progress, only survival. The swarm, it was never meant to be unleashed." Before Lisa could respond, a low rumble shook the ground beneath their feet. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and several of the aliens screamed, scrambling toward the back of the bunker. Lisa instinctively reached for her sidearm, motioning for her team to take cover. Ryan barked orders to the Marines, who formed a defensive line near the entrance. "What was that?" Jessica asked, her voice tight with tension. "Could be an aftershock," Don suggested, though his tone betrayed his uncertainty. Another rumble followed, louder this time. Then came a sound unlike anything they'd ever heard, high-pitched whine that seemed to pierce straight through their helmets. It grew louder, accompanied by vibrations that rattled their bones. Outside, the ash clouds parted briefly, revealing flashes of movement in the distance. "Something's coming," Ryan growled. Raising his rifle, Lisa activated her comms, patching. "Through to the Liberty. Liberty, this is Harper. We've got activity on the surface. Looks like the swarm might still be active. Stand by for evac." "Roger that, Captain," came the reply from the ship's bridge. "We're prepping the shuttle now, but evacuation wouldn't be easy." The bunker's location was remote, surrounded by jagged terrain and unstable structures. Getting everyone out safely would require precision and luck. The whining noise reached a crescendo, and then, without warning, the swarm erupted into view. Hundreds, maybe thousands of biomechanical creatures swarmed over the horizon, moving with terrifying speed. They looked like living machines, their bodies composed of shifting metal plates and glowing circuits. Tendrils whipped through the air, slicing through debris as if it were paper. Their forms constantly shifted, adapting to their surroundings, making them impossible to predict. "Fall back!" Lisa shouted, firing a burst from her plasma rifle. The shot hit one of the creatures square in the chest, causing it to stagger. But only for a moment. Within seconds, it reformed itself, its damaged parts melting away to reveal fresh layers of armor. The Marines opened fire, unleashing a barrage of bullets and energy blasts. For a few precious moments, it seemed to work. The swarm faltered under the assault, retreating slightly as their numbers dwindled. But then, just as quickly, reinforcements poured in from all directions, overwhelming the defenders. "We can't hold them off forever," Ryan yelled, reloading his weapon. "We need to move," Lisa nodded, turning to the aliens. "Get your people ready. We're leaving now." The aliens hesitated, paralyzed by fear, until one of them, a taller figure with sharp features, stepped forward. "There is another way out," it said urgently. "A tunnel. It leads to higher ground." "Show us," Lisa ordered, gesturing. For the group to follow, the tunnel was narrow and poorly lit, forcing them to move single file. The aliens led the way, their frail bodies navigating the uneven terrain with surprising agility. Behind them, the Marines provided cover, firing blindly into the darkness whenever the telltale sounds of the swarm drew too close. Sparks flew. As bullets ricocheted off metal and the air grew thick with smoke and heat, despite the chaos, Lisa remained focused. She knew they couldn't afford to panic, not yet. Every step brought them closer to safety, but also deeper into unknown territory. The tunnel twisted and turned, leading them farther away from the bunker and into the heart of the devastated city. At one point, the path split into two branches. The aliens argued briefly before choosing the left route, claiming it was shorter. Lisa wasn't convinced, but there was no time to debate. They pressed on, trusting their instincts and their weapons to see them through. After what felt like hours, they emerged into a wide-open plaza dominated by a crumbling spire. The structure loomed above them, its surface scarred by countless battles. Lightning illuminated the scene, casting long shadows across the ground. The swarm was everywhere, crawling over the ruins like insects, closing in on all sides. "We're trapped," Jessica muttered, her voice tinged with despair. "Not yet," Lisa countered, her eyes narrowing as she spotted a landing zone nearby. "Call the shuttle, tell them we're coming hot." The shuttle arrived moments later, descending through the storm with engines roaring. Its spotlight cut through the haze, illuminating the desperate scramble as the humans and aliens raced toward it. The Marines laid down suppressing fire, keeping the swarm at bay long enough for the survivors to board. But as Lisa climbed aboard last, she paused, looking back at the carnage. The swarm surged forward, relentless and unyielding. It wasn't just attacking, it was learning, evolving, becoming stronger with every encounter. "Captain, we need to go," Ryan shouted, pulling her inside. Lisa hesitated for a fraction of a second longer before nodding. "Let's move." The shuttle lifted off just as the swarm reached the edge of the landing zone. Tendrils lashed out, narrowly missing the craft as it ascended into the sky. Below, the city disappeared into a sea of writhing metal, consumed once again by the very force the aliens had unleashed. Back on the Liberty, the mood was somber. The crew worked silently, tending to the wounded and securing the refugees. Lisa stood on the bridge, staring out at the ruined planet through the viewport. Her mind raced with possibilities, weighing options and outcomes. Whatever decision she made next would shape not only the fate of these aliens, but potentially humanity's future as well. "What do we do now?" Don asked, breaking the silence. Lisa turned to face him, her expression grim. "We find a way to stop it, whatever it takes." And so, the mission continued, with the weight of countless lives resting on their shoulders. The swarm was still out there, growing stronger with each passing moment. And the truth about the ancient machines and the aliens' role in awakening them remained buried beneath layers of secrets and lies. Glow of the dying star. Inside, the ship buzzed with activity as the crew worked tirelessly to process everything they had seen and learned. The aliens now, numbering close to 50, were confined to a secure section of the ship under constant guard. They huddled together, whispering among themselves, their expressions a mix of fear and resignation. Lisa Harper paced the bridge, her boots clicking softly against the metal floor. She wasn't used to indecision, but this situation was unlike anything she'd faced before. "We can't just dump them back on their planet," Ensign Don Mitchell said, breaking the silence. He stood beside her, holding a tablet filled with data from the alien transmissions. "Even if we wanted to, it's not safe. The swarm would tear them apart. And keeping them here isn't exactly risk-free either." Ryan Cole chimed in, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. "What happens when they realize we're not taking them to some paradise, or worse, what if they're hiding something?" Lisa stopped pacing and turned to face them. "They're hiding plenty," she admitted, "but that doesn't mean we can ignore them. They're survivors, same as us. For now, they stay." Dunn nodded reluctantly. He didn't like it, but he understood. The aliens were scared, desperate, and unpredictable, but so was humanity when cornered. Still, there was no denying the tension aboard the ship. The Marines kept a close eye on the refugees, while the science team worked around the clock to analyze samples collected from the surface. Every piece of information mattered, especially since the swarm showed no signs of slowing down. Meanwhile, Jessica Morris sat at her station, running simulations of potential countermeasures. Her fingers danced across the keyboard as holographic displays flickered to life, showing various scenarios of engagement. None of them ended well. The swarm adapted too quickly, learning from every attack and growing stronger with each encounter. It wasn't just a threat, it was an existential problem, one that couldn't be solved by brute force alone. "There has to be another way," she muttered, rubbing her temples. "Something we're missing." Back on Earth, news of the mission spread like wildfire. Governments convened emergency sessions, debating how to respond to the alien plea for aid and the looming danger posed by the swarm. Public opinion was divided. Some argued that helping the aliens was a moral obligation, a chance to prove humanity's worth on the galactic stage. Others saw it as a waste of resources, warning that getting involved could lead to disaster. Protests erupted in major cities, with crowds chanting slogans ranging from "Save the Innocents" to "Protect our own." Amidst the chaos, a secret meeting took place deep within the halls of power. Military leaders, scientists, and corporate executives gathered in a dimly lit conference room, their faces illuminated only by the glow of holographic projections. The topic of discussion? Project Cleansing Tide, a classified initiative shelved years ago due to ethical concerns. The technology was designed to eradicate all biological life in a given area using nanites, microscopic machines programmed to target organic matter. It was brutal, efficient, and utterly indiscriminate. "We built this weapon for a reason," General Patrick Kane said, his voice low and gravelly. "It's time to use it." "You're talking about genocide, Doctor," Emily Grant countered, shaking her head. "Not just of the swarm, but of the aliens' entire ecosystem. Do you even understand what that means?" "I understand survival," Kane snapped. "If we don't act, that swarm will spread beyond their world. It'll consume everything in its path, including us." The argument went on for hours, with neither side willing to budge. Finally, the president stepped in, silencing the room. With a single raised hand. "Enough," she said firmly. "This isn't a debate, it's a decision. Project Cleansing Tide is reactivated. Captain Harper will oversee deployment." Orders were sent to the Liberty immediately. Lisa received them with a mixture of dread and resolve. She knew what the weapon was capable of and what unleashing it would mean. But she also knew there were no easy answers. The swarm had to be stopped, no matter the cost, Assemble the senior staff, she told her communications officer. We have work to do. The briefing room was packed within minutes. Lisa stood at the head of the table, flanked by Dan, Jessica, and Ryan. Screens displayed schematics of the nanite system, along with detailed maps of the alien planet. The atmosphere was tense, everyone aware of the gravity of the situation. This is Project Cleansing Tide, Lisa began, gesturing to the displays. A terraforming weapon designed to eliminate all biological life in a targeted area. Once activated, it cannot be stopped. The swarm will die, but so will everything else. A murmur rippled through the room. Some looked horrified, others resigned. Don raised his hand hesitantly. Is there any other option? Can we try diplomacy again? Maybe find a way to negotiate with the swarm? Negotiation assumes intelligence, Lisa replied. And based on what we've seen, the swarm isn't interested in talking. It's a machine. A predator. And predators don't stop until they're dead. Ryan leaned forward, his expression grim. So we burn the planet, wipe it clean. Then what? Hope the swarm doesn't follow us home. We prepare for that possibility, Lisa said simply. But right now, this is our best shot. The plan was set into motion. Drones carrying the nanites were deployed into orbit, forming a network around the planet. Technicians monitored their progress closely, ensuring the system remained stable. Meanwhile, Lisa ordered the Liberty to maintain a safe distance. Ready to evacuate at a moment's notice. As the countdown began, the aliens grew restless. They sensed something was wrong, though they couldn't pinpoint exactly what. Their leader, the tall figure who had guided them through the tunnel, approached Lisa during one of her rare visits to the refugee quarters. You are leaving us, the alien said, its voice tinged with accusation. You promised help, but instead you abandon us. Lisa met its gaze, her expression unreadable. We're doing what we have to. Trust me, this isn't easy for anyone. The alien stared at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Perhaps it is for the best. When the nanites were finally released, the effect was immediate and devastating. Clouds of microscopic machines descended upon the planet, spreading like a plague. Vegetation withered and crumbled to dust. Rivers boiled away, leaving behind barren wastelands. The swarm fought back, its biomechanical forms attempting to resist the onslaught, but it was no match for the sheer scale of the attack. Within hours, the surface was stripped bare, reduced to a sterile husk devoid of life. On board the Liberty, the crew watched in stunned silence as the planet transformed before their eyes. The once vibrant world was now a lifeless shell, its colors muted and its skies empty. It was a haunting sight, one that left an indelible mark on everyone who witnessed it. It's done, Jessica whispered, her voice barely audible. The swarm is gone. But so is everything else, Don added, his tone heavy with regret. Lisa said nothing. She merely stared at the screen, her thoughts swirling with questions and doubts. Had they made the right choice? Would history judge them harshly for what they had done? There were no clear answers, only the cold certainty that the mission was complete. Unbeknownst to them, however, the swarm wasn't entirely defeated. Deep beneath the planet's surface, hidden chambers housing ancient precursor technology remained, untouched by the nanites. The machines within stirred, reacting to the sudden absence of organic interference. Circuits hummed to life, and dormant systems activated, drawing energy from the surrounding rock. The swarm's remnants began to integrate with the precursor tech, merging and evolving in ways no one could have predicted. Hours later, as the Liberty prepared to depart, sensors picked up unusual readings emanating from the planet's core. At first, they were dismissed as residual effects of the nanite deployment. But as the signals grew stronger and more coherent, it became clear that something or someone was still alive down there. Captain, Don called out, urgency creeping into his voice. You need to see this. Lisa joined him at the console, her brow furrowing as she studied the data. What am I looking at? It's movement, Don replied, tapping rapidly on the screen. Something big, and it's heading toward the surface. Before anyone could react, the ground split open, releasing a massive wave of energy that lit up the darkened sky. The swarm, or what was left of it, burst forth, larger and more aggressive than ever before. It had absorbed the nanites, incorporating their technology into its structure. Now it was faster, smarter, and infinitely more dangerous. All hands battle stations. Lisa shouted, her voice cutting through the panic. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. The Liberty surged forward, engines roaring as it tried to outrun the emerging threat. But the swarm wasn't content to let them escape. Tendrils of metal lashed out, wrapping around the ship and pulling it back toward the planet. Alarms blared. As hull integrity warnings flashed across the bridge, "We're losing power." Jessica yelled, frantically working to stabilize the systems. "Fire everything we've got." Lisa ordered, gripping the railing as the ship shook violently. Explosions rocked the exterior, sending shockwaves through the interior. Sparks flew, and consoles sparked as the crew struggled to maintain control. Despite their efforts, the swarm continued to advance, relentless and unstoppable. Around the ship like a predator closing in on its prey. Alarms blared across the bridge, their high-pitched wails adding to the chaos. Sparks flew from overloaded consoles, and crew members scrambled to keep systems online. Lisa Harper stood at the center of it all, her hands gripping the railing as she barked orders. "Divert auxiliary power to the engines!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the noise. "We need to break free." Jessica Morris worked furiously at her station, rerouting energy reserves while trying to stabilize the ship's trajectory. Sweat dripped down her forehead as her fingers danced over the controls. "Engines are at 80%, she called out. "But we're still losing ground." Meanwhile, Ryan Cole led his Marines in securing critical areas of the ship, ensuring that no breaches compromised their defenses. The Marines moved with precision, setting up barricades near vulnerable sections of the hull. They knew the swarm could breach at any moment, and when it did, they had to be ready. On the other side of the ship, Don Mitchell raced through dimly lit corridors, clutching a data drive containing recovered files from the alien bunker. His heart pounded as he dodged falling debris and narrowly avoided collapsing walls. The swarm's attack had destabilized the ship's structure, making every step dangerous. But he couldn't afford to slow down, not now. Finally, he reached the lab where Dr. Carla Bennett waited, her face pale with exhaustion. She had been analyzing the precursor archives since they returned from the surface, piecing together fragments of ancient knowledge. When Dan burst into the room, she looked up, startled. "What is it?" she asked, her voice tight with concern. "We need answers now," Dowd replied, inserting the drive into a terminal. "The swarm's not done with us. If there's anything in these files about how to stop it, we need it immediately." Carla nodded, quickly pulling up the data. Together, they sifted through streams of information, decoding symbols and translating cryptic messages. Time was running out, and the pressure weighed heavily on them both. Then something caught. Carla's Aya sequence of commands labeled Shutdown Protocol. "This might be it," she said, her voice trembling with excitement. "It looks like a way to deactivate whatever system controls the swarm." Don leaned closer, studying the code. "Can you adapt it for our systems? If we can broadcast it, maybe we can shut the swarm down." "It's risky," Carla admitted. "If I get it wrong, we could make things worse, but yes, I think I can do it." Back on the bridge, the situation was growing dire. The swarm's tendrils had pierced the hull in several places, creating breaches that threatened to vent the entire crew into space. Emergency bulkheads sealed off affected areas, but the damage was spreading rapidly. Lisa clenched her jaw, her mind racing for solutions. "Status report," she demanded, turning to Jessica. "We've lost 20% of propulsion." Jessica replied, her hands moving frantically over her console. "Life support is holding steady for now. But if the swarm keeps this up, we won't last much longer." Lisa glanced at the viewport where the planet loomed ominously below. The swarm was spreading, climbing higher into orbit as if drawn to the Liberty like a magnet. She realized they couldn't outrun it, not without help. "Contact the aliens," she ordered. Tell them we need their cooperation. If they know anything else about the swarm, they'd better start talking. A Marine escorted the alien leader to the bridge, his movements cautious but firm. The tall figure stepped forward hesitantly, its eyes wide with fear. Lisa approached it, her expression hard. "Listen carefully," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Your world is gone, your people are safe for now. But unless you tell us everything you know about the swarm, none of us will survive." The alien hesitated, then nodded slowly. "There is one thing," it admitted, its voice barely above a whisper. "An installation, buried deep beneath the surface. It was built by the precursors, the same ones who created the swarm. It holds the key to controlling it." "Control it?" Lisa repeated, narrowing her eyes. "You mean shutting it down?" "Perhaps," the alien replied, "but the installation is guarded. Traps and defenses protect it. Many have tried to reach it and failed." Lisa didn't hesitate. "Then we'll be the first to succeed. Prepare a landing team, we're going back down there." The decision sparked immediate protests from the crew. Jessica argued that the risk was too great, while Ryan pointed out that splitting their forces would leave the ship vulnerable. But Lisa silenced them with a single look. "We don't have a choice," she said firmly. "If this is our only shot at stopping the swarm, we take it. The Liberty stays here and holds position. The rest of us go." The landing party consisted of Lisa, Dan, Ryan, 2 Marines, and the alien leader, who insisted on accompanying them. They suited up quickly, arming themselves with plasma rifles, explosives, and tools scavenged from the ship's engineering bay. As they boarded the shuttle, Lisa addressed the group. "This isn't just about survival," she said, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "This is about ending the threat once and for all. No matter what happens down there, we finish the mission." The descent was harrowing. The swarm swarmed around them, attacking the shuttle with relentless fury. Jessica piloted the craft with expert skill, weaving through the chaos as explosions rocked the cabin. When they finally touched down near the entrance to the precursor installation, the ground shook violently beneath their feet. "Stay sharp," Ryan warned, stepping out first with his weapon raised. "We're walking into a death trap." The entrance was hidden behind layers of rock and debris, revealed only by scans conducted earlier. Using explosives, the team cleared a path, revealing a massive door etched with intricate patterns. The alien leader approached it, placing its hand on a glowing panel. The door slid open with a low rumble, revealing a dark corridor stretching into the unknown. Inside, the air was cold and stale, filled with the faint hum of machinery. Walls lined with pulsating veins of light guided their way, casting eerie shadows on the floor. Sensors detected movement ahead, but whether it was traps or something else remained unclear. As they ventured deeper, the installation came alive. Walls shifted, floors collapsed, and robotic sentinels emerged from hidden alcoves, firing beams of energy at the intruders. The team fought back, relying on teamwork and quick reflexes to survive. Ryan took point, leading the charge with brutal efficiency, while Lisa coordinated their efforts, keeping everyone focused. Despite their best efforts, casualties mounted. One of the Marines fell victim to a hidden spike trap, impaled before anyone could react. Another was dragged away by a sentinel, disappearing into the darkness with a scream. The survivors pressed on, driven by sheer determination. Eventually, they reached the control chamber, a vast room dominated by a towering console covered in glowing runes. The alien leader approached it cautiously, its hands trembling as it activated the interface. Holographic displays sprang to life, showing schematics of the swarm and its connection to the precursor network. "This is it," Don said, his voice filled with awe. The shutdown sequence. Carla's adapted code was uploaded into the system, and the process began. Lights flickered as the installation communicated with the swarm, attempting to override its programming. For a moment, it seemed to work. The tendrils outside retracted slightly, and the attacks on the Liberty ceased. But then something went wrong. The console sparked, and warning messages flashed across the screens. The swarm wasn't shutting down, it was adapting, integrating the new commands into its own structure. It was becoming something even more dangerous. We triggered an evolution, Don whispered, his face pale with realization. The swarm's learning from us. Lisa cursed under her breath, grabbing the alien leader by the arm. Is there another way? Anything else we can do? The alien hesitated, then nodded. The core. At the heart of the installation lies the swarm's origin point. Destroy it, and the swarm dies. Without hesitation, Lisa led the team deeper into the facility, following the alien's directions. The journey was grueling, filled with obstacles designed to deter intruders. But they pushed forward. Knowing failure wasn't an option. When they finally reached the core chamber, they found themselves face to face with a massive sphere suspended in midair, pulsating with energy. Tendrils of biomechanical material extended from it, connecting to countless nodes throughout the room. It was beautiful and terrifying. This is it, Lisa said, raising her weapon. Fire everything we've got. The team unleashed a barrage of firepower, targeting the core with everything they had. Explosions rocked the chamber, shaking the ground beneath their feet. The sphere resisted, absorbing the damage and regenerating itself almost instantly. It was clear that brute force alone wouldn't be enough. We need a direct hit, Don shouted, pulling out a prototype explosive device. I'll plant this on the core. It should overload it. You'll never make it, Ryan argued, firing wildly at approaching sentinels. Let me go. No, Lisa interrupted, her voice firm. Dan's right. He's the only one who understands the tech. Cover him. With the team providing support, Don sprinted toward the core, dodging attacks and narrowly avoiding death at every turn. When he reached it, he placed the explosive with trembling hands, activating the timer. Get out of here, he yelled. Turn. Mood was somber. The crew moved quietly, their faces drawn with exhaustion and grief. Though the swarm had been destroyed, the cost of victory weighed heavily on everyone. The Marines who had fallen during the mission were honored in a brief ceremony, their names added to the ship's memorial wall. Lisa Harper stood at the front of the gathering, her expression unreadable but her voice steady. As she spoke, "We lost good people today," she said, her words carrying across the room. "But because of their sacrifice, we stopped something that could have wiped out entire civilizations. They gave everything so we could live. Let's make sure it wasn't in vain." As the ceremony ended, the crew dispersed, each returning to their duties with heavy hearts. Repairs were underway, patching up the damage inflicted by the swarm. Technicians worked tirelessly, welding breaches in the hull and replacing burned-out systems. Jessica Morris sat at her station on the bridge, running diagnostics to ensure the ship was still flight-worthy. Ryan Cole oversaw security measures, ensuring no lingering threats remained aboard. And Dan Mitchell. Well, Dan couldn't stop thinking about what he'd seen down in the precursor installation. He sat alone in the lab, staring at the data drive containing fragments of information, salvaged from the ruins. His mind replayed the moments leading up to the explosion, the chaos, the noise, the blinding light. He remembered planting the explosive on the core, feeling the heat of its energy radiating against his skin. He remembered turning to run, hearing Lisa's voice shouting orders behind him, and then nothing. Just darkness. When he woke up, he was back on the Liberty, alive but confused. The others told him they'd barely escaped the blast zone before the core collapsed. Somehow, miraculously, the team had survived. But Dan knew better than anyone that miracles came with strings attached. The precursor tech hadn't been fully understood, and now pieces of it were scattered across the galaxy, including whatever knowledge remained stored on this drive. Carla Bennett joined him in the lab, pulling up a chair without saying a word. She glanced at the screen, where lines of code scrolled endlessly, and sighed. "You're still trying to crack it?" Don nodded. "There's more here. I can feel it. If we don't understand what happened, we risk making the same mistakes." Again, Carla hesitated, then placed a hand on his shoulder. "We did what we had to do. Sometimes answers aren't enough, but what if they are?" Don countered, his voice rising slightly. "What if there's something in these files that could prevent another disaster? Or worse, what if someone else finds them first? Before Carla could respond. The door slid open and Lisa stepped inside. She looked tired, her usual sharpness dulled by days of stress and sleepless nights. "Update me," she said simply. Taking a seat beside them, Don explained what he'd uncovered so far: remnants of the swarm's programming, traces of the precursor network, and hints of other installations scattered throughout the galaxy. None of it painted a clear picture, but one thing was certain: the precursors hadn't built the swarm for destruction. It had been a tool designed to terraform barren worlds into habitable ones. The problem was, the aliens had misused it, triggering an uncontrollable chain reaction. So it wasn't just a weapon, Lisa mused, rubbing her temples. It was a failed experiment, a dangerous one, Carla added. And now, thanks to us, parts of it might still be out there. Lisa leaned back in her chair, her gaze distant. Then we find them, all of them. Every last piece of precursor. Tech gets analyzed, cataloged, and, if necessary, destroyed. No exceptions. Her tone left no room for argument. The decision was made. Humanity would take responsibility for cleaning up the mess, even if it meant years or decades of searching. The Liberty's mission parameters were updated, and preparations began for the next phase of their journey. Meanwhile, the alien refugees remained aboard the ship, confined to their quarters under constant surveillance. Tensions between them and the crew had grown since the destruction of their homeworld. Some blamed the humans for their loss, while others grudgingly acknowledged that survival wouldn't have been possible without their intervention. Regardless, trust was fragile, and Lisa wasn't willing to risk another betrayal. One evening, as the ship drifted through the void, Lisa paid a visit to the refugee quarters. The tall alien leader greeted her cautiously, its posture stiff but respectful. "Captain Harper," it said, bowing slightly. "To what do we owe this honor?" "I wanted to speak with you," Lisa replied, her tone neutral. "About your future and ours." The alien tilted its head, confusion flickering across its features. "Our future is uncertain. Our world is gone, our people are scattered. What hope is there?" "Hope starts with honesty," Lisa said bluntly. "Your actions awakened the swarm. You tried to control something you didn't understand, and billions paid the price. If we're going to move forward, I need to know everything, no secrets. No lies." The alien hesitated, then nodded slowly. "You deserve the truth, but know this: we acted out of desperation. Our resources were dwindling, our population was starving. The precursors' machines offered salvation, or so we thought." "Salvation turned into annihilation," Lisa interrupted. "And now, because of your choices, we're all paying the price." The alien lowered its gaze, shame evident in its posture. "We cannot undo what has been done, but perhaps we can help prevent it from happening again." Over the next few days, the aliens cooperated fully, sharing what little they knew about the precursor technology. Maps were drawn, coordinates marked, and plans formulated. The Liberty set course for the nearest site, a distant moon believed to house another precursor installation. The journey would take weeks, giving the crew time to regroup and prepare. Back on Earth, news of the mission spread cautiously. Government officials debated how much information to release to the public, balancing transparency with fear of panic. Rumors circulated online, fueled by leaks and speculation. Some hailed the crew of the Liberty as heroes, while others condemned their actions as reckless interference in alien affairs. Protests continued, with crowds demanding accountability and justice. In response, the president addressed the nation, delivering a carefully crafted speech that emphasized unity and resilience. "Humanity stands at a crossroads," she declared. "We have faced dangers unimaginable and emerged stronger. The events surrounding the swarm remind us of our responsibility, not just to ourselves, but to the universe. Let us learn from this tragedy and strive to build a better future." Behind closed doors, however, discussions took a darker turn. Military leaders pushed for the development of new weapons based on precursor designs, arguing that humanity needed to stay ahead of potential threats. Scientists warned against such haste, pointing out the risks of replicating technologies they barely understood. Ethical concerns were raised, but ultimately overshadowed by the promise of power on board the Liberty, Dan Mitchell wrestled with his own doubts. Late at night, when the rest of the crew slept, he pored over the data, searching for answers. He found references to precursor colonies, abandoned experiments, and cryptic warnings about unintended consequences. The more he read, the more he realized how little they truly knew and how dangerous ignorance could be. "We're playing with fire," he muttered to himself one night, staring at the glowing screen. "And sooner or later, someone's going to get burned." The ship's arrival at the precursor moon brought both relief and unease. The surface was barren, dotted with strange structures half buried in the dirt. Exploration teams ventured out, scanning for signs of activity. So far, nothing indicated the presence of another swarm or any living organisms at all. But as they delved deeper into the ruins, they discovered something unexpected, a message, etched into the walls of a crumbling chamber, written in a language neither human nor alien, were words that sent chills down their spines. "Beware those who seek dominion over creation. The tools of gods demand sacrifice." Don stared at the inscription, his heart pounding. He didn't need to translate it to understand its meaning. The precursors had known the risks of their inventions, and yet they had forged ahead anyway. Now humanity stood on the same precipice, teetering between curiosity and catastrophe. "What do we do now?" Carla asked softly, standing beside him. Don exhaled slowly, his mind racing. "We keep going," he said finally. "Because if we don't, someone else will. And they might not care about the consequences." As the Liberty prepared to leave the moon behind, Lisa Harper stood on the bridge, gazing out at the stars. She felt the weight of leadership pressing down on her shoulders, heavier than ever before. The decisions she made here would shape not only the fate of her crew, but potentially the future of humanity itself. "Set course for the next site," she ordered, her voice firm despite the uncertainty swirling within her. "And keep your eyes open. We're not done yet." The engines roared to life, propelling the ship forward into the unknown. Somewhere out there, amidst the endless expanse of space, lay answers and dangers that humanity could scarcely imagine. But one thing was certain, the mission was far from over.